Hi, everybody, and welcome to Ivy English. I'm Karen.
And I'm Chris Gorski.
Today is August 25th, and today we have kind of an unusual subject, and it's going to be spread out over 2 days. We're only going to hear part one of our article. Our title is...
Combs Through the Ages.
Now, I want to make sure you understood the first word because it is the center of the article. It's the topic of the whole piece. It's spelled C-O-M-B-S, but we don't pronounce the B, combs.
Combs. So that's the thing you run through your hair to make your hair look beautiful.
And I also want to mention something about the Chinese word. And we're not allowed to speak Chinese in this particular unit, but in English, we make a big distinction between combs and brushes. For us, of course, they have a similar purpose, but they are totally different objects. A comb is flat and has usually pretty evenly spaced teeth. A brush looks like a scrub brush, something you use to clean the floor. So a comb and a brush are two
sounds
different.
Way worse.
I know it does, but that's the way it sounds in Chinese.
It is a very clear idea, though.
If you use the Chinese word for brush, people will think of scrubbing the dishes or the floor or the sink or something. So in English, comb and brush are two different objects with a similar purpose, but they have the same translation. Normally in Chinese, if you want to distinguish them, you'll have to say, oh, I mean the flat one. Oh, I mean the one that looks like a scrub brush. That's the only way you can do it. So our title again is Combs Through the Ages, and let's jump right into paragraph 1. In the morning, you wake up, comb your hair, brush your teeth, and do a number of other things to get ready for the day. Have you ever taken a moment during this daily routine to consider the history and progression of these habits? We're not talking about your personal history, but rather trends over the millennia. In particular, we're interested in the history of the hair comb.
According to anthropologists, the use of combs dates back all the way to the Stone Age. At this time, combs were made of wood, ivory, or even fish bones. When humans invented metalworking around 5000 BCE or so, people began manufacturing combs that were made of materials such as horn, onyx, and ebony.
The earliest versions of combs had 5 to 10 teeth, and anthropologists have suggested that the number of teeth mimicked the fingers on a person's hands. The look of the comb continued to evolve over time, and combs with more teeth emerged. Reportedly, the Egyptians were the first to produce a double-sided comb, that is to say, a comb with 2 sets of teeth pointing in opposite directions, connected by a central spine. Combs could also be highly decorative and extremely valuable. Combs with carved designs were found all over the world, and the wealthy had some very expensive combs. One comb found near the Black Sea was made of 10 ounces of pure gold and belonged to an ancient Iranian leader.
Of course, all these combs weren't just decorative. Combs were originally used to help remove lice and dirt from hair. They were also used to style hair and secure women's long hair, either simply by pulling the hair back from the face or keeping the hair in more elaborate hairstyles.
There's a lot of things that we could say about a lot of things in the article. Let's just go back to the beginning and go over it sentence by sentence. Our title again is Combs Through the Ages. This is a really good phrase to use when you're talking about the history of something. Or you could say, for example, dairy products through the ages. That means how long we've been eating things made out of milk. Anything through the ages, you're giving a history of a certain thing. Our first sentence, in the morning, you wake up, comb your hair, brush your teeth, and do a number of other things to get ready for the day. The number of other things, the first thing I think of is going to pee. Right?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what does this mean to you?
They just wanted to kind of avoid the less, the more delicate things.
Do you have maybe something that you consider maybe a unique morning routine?
I do, actually. This book I've got in my bag about strange stories from a Chinese studio.
That's right. You're still going through that.
I'm on volume 7 of 8. I should be able to finish the whole set this year, maybe in another 3 months. So I get up, and even before I pee, I start reading it.
That's funny. That's what was it like before you go to bed? You're supposed to read one line of Confucius from history. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about because that kind of plants an idea in your mind, and your subconscious brain or unconscious brain can work on it while you're sleeping. But usually at the time, I just want to get to sleep. So I will play something boring and I fall asleep and that's that. But I have my plan set for the morning. I do it every morning. And since I do it every morning, I know I'm going to get up and I'm going to take my book. And that's how I've gotten through. I'm already up to seven volumes, and this is really difficult reading. So for me, that's the important thing. After that, actually, I do it while I'm peeing. And so then after that, then I exercise and I listen to the French news with my earphones while I'm exercising. And then I finally get my caffeine rush.
That's your day.
That's the beginning. And I actually love mornings. It's the best time of the day.
It's a good. That's funny. I'm so the opposite. I would rather jump out the window than have to wake up early personally. I am far more active at night. I am nocturnal, I'm sure, by nature. But in the morning when I wake up, like the first thing I do is go chug like 16 ounces of water, like a huge cup of water.
That's
like
a good habit,
the
too.
thing I do.
That's a good habit.
That's right. Sometimes I forget to make enough water in the morning, and it's your whole day is a wreck after that. I need that giant cup of water. It's just such a habit for me at this point.
It's really
It's
good.
almost like not having coffee. It's almost like I need this to start the day.
I think especially for you personally, because I understand you have allergies.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Right?
And the water really helps to get things flowing and get things going. So I think that's a great habit. My mind just it just tunes out. It just shuts down at night. There's not much I can do. So we're just the opposite on that. And I have been waking up lately around 5:40.
Oh.
And I used to fight it. I thought, I want another hour of sleep. And I thought, forget it. I'm getting up, and that's when I start reading, and I get an early start.
Oh,
I know, crazy, right?
Yeah, I know several people like this. It's not for me. Ask people about their morning routine. If you have a person that can be open with you, you'll be surprised about what you don't know about a person. And you may find some weird connections that you have in your life with people just by asking them what they do in that personal time in the morning.
It's very personal. Everyone is really different. Okay, so here they are describing a typical routine. You wake up. We all have to do that at some point. Comb your hair. Actually, I do brush my hair pretty soon after I get up because it's kind of a mess after you've been sleeping all night. I don't comb it, though. I brush it. Comb is easy to hit snarls. Snarl, S-N-A-R-L. S-N-A-R-L. It's usually plural snarls. That means places where your hair is kind of tied in knots, and you have to kind of undo the knots. A brush is a little easier to do it. A comb will often tear your hair off. So I only carry a comb because it's handy. Normally, I don't use a comb. I use a brush.
I probably haven't personally used a comb in 25 years.
There you go. It's because I'm now wearing a hiking belt, and a comb fits in flat. So that's why, the combs are flat. They're easy to carry. You brush your teeth. Actually, I don't brush my teeth until after I eat because I got food in my mouth. I want to brush the teeth.
And this is a small distinction I make with my younger students.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we do learn brush and comb similarly. They'll say brush your teeth, but every once in a while you get a kid that says comb your teeth.
That's amazing. Because
isn't that a funny little kind of way the words conflate?
Yes, because brush and comb means a brush used for brushing your hair. So you comb your hair, brush your teeth, keep those separate.
A toothbrush is flat, just like you were describing before.
But it's got bristles.
A comb that's right. And a comb is a straight line. It's a flat object. You can't comb your teeth. That sounds horrible.
That's really funny. I've never heard that one. I'm glad. Okay. And then do a number of other things to get ready for the day. Well, some people will wash their face. Of course, you have to go to the bathroom. At least most people do. And then wash your face. And then after that, it really varies. A lot of people will exercise, do other things. So this is just a list of a typical morning routine. May or may not apply to you. Our next sentence, have you ever taken a moment during this daily routine to consider the history and progression of these habits? So of these things you do you ever think about how they evolved, how they came into being, why we do these things? Well, I think it's because my culture told me we should do these things. If I did not have a culture teaching me these things, I would certainly go to the bathroom. But as for the other things, I think you learn by growing up in a family that teaches you to do them.
Yeah, I imagine you do mimic some of these morning routines. But as we discovered, I suspect we develop our own thing too. You personalize this thing. I need my water. That's it. I don't know anyone else that slams water like I do in the morning. I encourage my wife to do it in the mornings because she often feels overheated in summer. Like just wake up and just start chugging water. Chug, C-H-U-G. That means drink really fast.
To chug it. Yeah, drink it really fast. Go, 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 go. And it goes down. Actually, I know a lot of people have this habit.
That's funny.
From what I read, like Medium and other magazines. A lot of people do this. So have you ever thought about, how this came into being? Well, we're going to talk about something very specific. Not all of these habits, not about your toothbrush and the toilet and washing your face and all this stuff. It's just one particular thing. We're not talking about your personal history, but rather trends over the millennia. So they still are not getting specific. They've told you in the title, but here they're still hedging. H-E-D-G-E. H-E-D-G-E. To hedge, that means you're still not telling people immediately what you're planning on doing or talking about.
You're not declaring your strong opinion.
Yeah, you're beating around the bush. So it says, we're not going to be talking about you personally. Trends means things that people tend to do. They usually do. Many people do these things. Over the millennia, a millennium is 1,000 years. The correct plural, at least the traditional plural, is millennia with 2 L's and 2 N's. But a lot of people now are regularizing it and saying millenniums.
I have heard that, although I personally, you and I have discussed this many times, that I have adopted many of those kind of neologisms. Yeah. I do not. I hate this one. Millenniums sounds completely uneducated to me. I'm not here to judge.
That's right. And also the irregular past participles of verbs, like I have ran out of this. That is now common. People are no longer saying run. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to talk about things that have developed among humans over the millennia. And finally, they're going to tell us what it is we're talking about. In particular, we're interested in the history of the hair comb. Now, there are other kinds of combs. For example, you use combs in weaving cloth or wool. You have to comb wool. So combs are used for other purposes. We're talking about the comb you use to comb your hair, to tidy up your hair.
According to anthropologists, the use of combs dates back all the way to the Stone Age.
Now, I really like this that they jump right into it because you're thinking recent history. And in our last lesson together, we were talking about things that started in the, say, 1100s, in the 12th century. Now, that's quite a while ago, but not that long ago if you compare it to the Stone Age. So that means very, very early on, humans felt the need to untangle their hair. To tangle means to get things all mixed up in a knot. Untangle means to get the knots out and smooth things out.
So let's continue here. At this time, combs were made of wood, ivory, or even fish bones.
And this is very graphic for me because what pops into my mind is a lot of images that are memories from visits to museums. I've seen many, many museum displays where they have these very old combs on display.
That's right. It's one of those things that people kept, as we'll get into later. It is not something, you lose your comb today. I'll just go buy a new one. But in the past, no, you were not doing that.
And there are folk songs about golden combs and things like that. There's also a beauty salon called the Golden Comb. So they often were precious objects in the past. What are they? Wood made from trees, ivory from the big tooth of an elephant, or the bones of a fish. They better be pretty strong bones.
Our next sentence. When humans invented metalworking around 5,000 BCE or so, people began manufacturing combs that were made of materials such as horn, onyx, and ebony.
And we really care about this ability to make things out of metal. You can do it by pounding metal, or you can melt it, you can smelt it, and then pour it into a mold. There are different ways of doing it. So that's why we often classify periods of history as the Iron Age and the Bronze Age.
So Karen just brought up a really great word, smelt, S-M-E-L-T. That also sounds like you smell something, but this specifically means to melt metal. And there's a fancier way to say metalworking you may come across. It's metallurgy. And it's one word, M-E-T-A-L-L-U-R-G-Y. There's 2 L's there.
And it's also the name of a department at a university.
Oh.
They have departments of metallurgy in engineering.
Now, in BCE, in the past, you'll see BC, but that's related to Christianity.
Right.
It meant before Christ. Today, anthropologists and scientists don't like that, so they say BCE, which means before the Common Era.
Which I think is much better. It's more neutral.
It's more accurate.
Yeah, otherwise, we are imposing our worldviews, or at least the worldviews of some people historically, on too many people. Okay, and so they began manufacturing, simply means making. And if you say manufacturing, you really think of it as a craft, and maybe you're making quite a few of them, not just one.
And you're using your hands here, which is very specific because man is Latin for hand. And then F-A-C-T, fact, doesn't mean like, oh, it's true. It means to do something. In fact, it means do something easily.
To do or to make, exactly. And the materials listed here are horn. That means like the horn of a ram.
Right.
Or of an ox. And onyx is a kind of jade, and you will find a lot of onyx in Mexico.
If you played Pokemon Go, it's the long rock snake. That's what onyx is, okay? It's a big kind of rock.
You can buy onyx eggs, all kinds of things in Mexico. And ebony is black wood. It's very hard and very precious. It's also a symbol of Black Americans.
That's absolutely right. When I saw that, I was thinking we have to mention that Ebony was a famous magazine about Black culture in the United States.
Isn't it still going?
I don't know.
I think it
but
is.
Growing up, I grew up in an African-American neighborhood, and Ebony magazine was everywhere. It was a very common magazine.
Which it's good that we had that back then because there was, we hadn't gotten far with civil rights yet, but there was a magazine specifically for Black people with
black
black
culture
hair
and black faces
features,
and black people doing black people things.
Because their needs in many areas are different from people who don't have that kind of hair, for example. Our next paragraph, the earliest versions of combs had 5 to 10 teeth, and anthropologists have suggested that the number of teeth mimicked the fingers on a person's hands. I find this very convincing because if you don't have a comb, what do? You run your fingers through your hair.
That's what I do. That's how I do it.
And that's also done in a romantic situation. She ran her fingers through my hair kind of thing.
So I wanted to point out how this is written in our article. We have the word 5 to 10, the number teeth. So word to number teeth. Do you have any strong opinions on this? I personally like the variety of that, but I know a lot of writers personally that will say pick one or the other.
We had a rule when I worked for the Government Information Office. 1 through 9, you write it out. Starting from 10, you use the Arabic numerals.
Oh, interesting.
It's an editorial rule.
Nice.
We had to follow. Okay, and at least it was more consistent that way. So mimic means to copy, to be like.
That's exactly what it means in Greek. M-I-M means to copy in Greek.
The look of the comb continued to evolve over time, and combs with more teeth emerged. So the design of the comb started to change. They decided that maybe 5 or 10 teeth wasn't quite enough. You could get the job done faster if you had more teeth, so they added more teeth. Reportedly, the Egyptians were the first to produce a double-sided comb. That is to say, a comb with 2 sets of teeth pointing in opposite directions, connected by a central spine. We had these combs when I was a kid, and one of them was used for when you're washing hair to untangle hair.
The big, thick teeth, right? Is that correct?
No, this one had fine teeth, and I wouldn't scream, but it was really uncomfortable because when your hair is wet, it's harder to comb. So I really disliked that comb.
That's interesting. I assumed it was easier. Again, I don't use combs. I don't really know. Spine is a good word. It means backbone. That's probably the easier way to say it. It's that big, long bone down the middle of your back. And the double-sided comb is one of those things that's so obvious in history. It's like the wheel. Like, how did we go so long without thinking about this?
But actually, I didn't like them because it's better to have a handle on one side and the teeth on the other side. So now they have teeth on just one side, but half of them are fine teeth and the other half are more widely spaced.
Right.
I like that design better if you need 2 kinds of teeth. Okay, the next line. Combs could also be highly decorative and extremely valuable. And we've kind of already discussed that. You can use expensive materials to make combs, and you could put a lot of decoration on them as they've become a work of art, an object of art.
People can buy art. They can buy cars, airplanes today. In the past, you couldn't really buy a lot of that. You couldn't even really buy expensive art. So you had to spend your money somewhere to show how rich you were. Combs were one of the things you bought.
And in the past, they did not have a throwaway disposable culture. You got something and you used it most of your life, probably.
Until it basically destroyed itself. It was disintegrated.
And you might try to get it fixed even then, because back then things were expensive. You took good care of things. So unlike now, this is a terrible thing about modern life. Combs with carved designs were found all over the world, and the wealthy had some very expensive combs. I don't think that needs explanation. It's very straightforward. One comb found near the Black Sea was made of 10 ounces of pure gold and belonged to an ancient Iranian leader. Now, I have to tell the truth. When I think of a very utilitarian object made of gold...
Trump's gold toilet?
That's right.
Wow, we did not plan that. Karen just looked at me, and I was like, Karen wants me to say this. Like, you spoke to me through my mind.
Which tells me that there is a lot of shared cultural knowledge. If you are an English speaker and you grew up in the States, and often England as well, we share a lot with them. Some things are going to be different, like bangers and mash. We don't use that word. We have some differences. But I've been friends with a Brit for a long time. And he'd say, well, when I was a little boy in England, I go, I did that too when I was a kid. We have so much in common. Language makes all the difference in the world, even if you have some dialect differences. So this wouldn't happen often with a Taiwanese broadcasting partner. This person would get it mainly, but if you don't grow up with the culture,
to know what you were going to say, to anticipate what that object would be,
which tells you there is a body of knowledge that's worth learning. If you want to learn the language well, learn the culture, and there is a culture that's shared. Okay, that's set for sure.
And our final paragraph. Of course, all these combs weren't just decorative. Combs were originally used to help remove lice and dirt from hair.
Now, normally we wash our hair quite often. A lot of people wash it every day. So we don't usually use a comb to get the dirt out unless you've just been hiking. But in the past, they did not shower as often and they didn't wash their hair as often. The even more important one is lice, which is the plural of louse, L-O-U-S-E. That's a very small bug that actually sucks your blood. It gets on your head. It's very, very hard to get rid of. So there is a woman who is a professional lice remover, and she does it often for very famous people. Movie stars, singers, people living in mansions, they have head lice.
Right.
And she has to use a very, very fine-tooth special comb for removing lice. And these people think, they're really arrogant, they're rich. But when they have this problem, they're like anybody else.
It's so gross.
It's gross.
It's not fair to say that, but it's gross to me.
It's really true, but because she's a specialist, and you cannot really get rid of the lice unless you go through this process with that comb. I thought that was a really interesting article.
They were also used to style hair and secure women's long hair, either simply by pulling the hair back from the face or keeping the hair in more elaborate hairstyles.
That is another use of the comb. You push your hair back and you stick the comb in there to hold it in place. And that was done in China. I read this all the time in my novels. They have these hair pins and something like combs. It was like a basic thing that just about every woman used. That's all we have time for today, but we're going to hear part 2 tomorrow. Please tune in then. Bye-bye.
See you later.